Hi, I'm Todd Shelton.
I'm Luke Jones.
And we're with Dev Workshop Programming. So as promised in the last tutorial, we're going to actually do two tonight.
Yes.
Okay, so the one thing I'm going to do is show you how to lay out a website with a header at the top, a content area in the middle, and a footer that's basically fixed at the bottom using Flex. Okay, now as we get going, there are some limitations that we found out. Okay, but so that's going to be my portion. Luke, go ahead and...
Well, with my portion, we're going to, instead of it laying out our content using the Flexbox or laying out like the website, such Todd was talking about with the footer and the header and the content inside of it, we're actually going to take the contents inside and we're going to do stuff like make a logo centered, have content be able to, when you dynamically are adding more stuff to it, you can just add it and it just adds and it looks great. And no problems at all. Gotta love Flexbox, trust me.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we'll get more into it once we get to those portions.
Yeah. And Flexbox, like we did in the last tutorial, there's a when to use, when not to use.
Yes.
Okay, and we'll definitely go through that in some of these tutorials right here. Also, down below in the description, you will find the starting files for this. Okay, and that'll help you guide you along. Mine's not very big. Right? So we're going to start off.
It's not that big either.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, yeah,
you can copy and paste.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. All right, so go ahead and fire up your IDE, whatever editor you want to use, okay? And basically I have an index file and a CSS file. They're both linked. I got a basic reset up here at the top, margin 0, padding 0. HTML and body, both height 100%. Okay, so basically that just makes sure that our parent container, the HTML and body, are as 100% of the viewport window. It's very important.
Right.
Also, I actually did an H1, H2, and all that, and reset the margin bottom back to 16 pixels. That's what it is, just so if I add content, it'll work properly. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. So I want to create, using the display flex, I want to put a header at the top, okay, and a footer at the bottom and a content area in the middle. Let's go ahead and get started. I'm actually going to start with a div and give it a class of a wrapper. All right, then inside of this wrapper, I'm actually going to do a header. And after a header, I'm going to create another div and give it a class of content. All right, now there's no content inside there yet, or actually you can put a paragraph or an H1. Let's just do an H1. Hello world. That's always CS stuff, isn't it?
Everything uses hello in world now.
Yeah, that's just the way it's always been. All right, so we have a header, we have a content area with an H1, and we have our footer. Okay, now we want to separate those, okay, and have that header at the top. So over here in my CSS, I'm actually going to give our wrapper, okay, I'm going to give it a height of 100 pixels. I'm going to give it a width. Now you don't have to give it a width if you don't want to, but I'm just going to go ahead and give that a width of 100%.
The width is already received from our parent element, which is our HTML, and our body, which is already 100%.
Right, correct. So and then I'm going to give it a background color of red. Okay, so now if you go over and you previewed, I'm going to just go ahead and render this and preview this. You're just going to see that it's 100% the wrapper, and it says hello world in there. Okay, and that's just because of the content here. And I put height of the wrapper is 100 pixels. Actually, it should be 100%.
Yes.
Okay, now it's going to grow a little bit.
There we go.
Right.
Now it's looking fine.
And you can even put min height of 100% on this. Go back and refresh, and it's still going to work just fine. Okay, and that way it will still grow when there's content inside there. Let's go ahead and finish out the rest of this before we add our display. In our header, now we are going to say the height of this is 100 pixels. Okay, and the background color of this is going to be white. Okay, and that's all we need for right now. Then the next is going to be content. And the content area, we're just going to give it a background color for now. Okay, so, and I'm just going to say it's blue or whatever color you want to.
Don't make it yellow.
Yeah.
Don't make it yellow.
Let me get over here. All right, so there's blue. So we got that content area, and then of course I need my footer and height. And this is basically just going to be just like the header part, and just give it a background color of white. All right, so if we go back and refresh our page, we'll see what we have here. Okay, now you have your header up the very top, you have your content area, which is the hello world in the blue, and then you have the footer that's down there at the bottom. Okay, the reason why there's the little space of red in between here is because of that margin bottom on the H1, and it's pushing that footer away. That'll go away here in a second. All right, so the next thing we need to do is get the header up at the top, footer down at the bottom. All right, so we're going to use display flex to do that.
Bam.
Okay, so we're going to do display flex, of course, and then by default that goes in rows. So you'll see as soon as we go back and refresh, we have our content on the left and everything else is over there on the other side. Okay, so we're going to do flex direction column. We want our page to be up and down instead of left to right. Refresh. Again, now they're stacked on top of each other, but you'll notice that our margin bottom on our H1 actually was applied. Okay, and there's no space in there, but they're still stacked up. We need to get some space in between there. The only other thing you really need to do here in this situation is just add justify content, and then if you put space between, it will actually move the footer to the bottom. Okay, now your content is centered here. Okay, and your header is at the top. Now, you could have nav or links or whatever you want in there at the very top, and your content, but you're going to be like, well, I don't really want my content centered in this situation. I may want to move it up at the top. Well, if you go inside of content here and you can put margin bottom, and if you put auto, this will move it to the bottom of the header.
Correct.
Okay, so now your website's laid out. Now, the bad thing about this is, one is if we duplicate this H1 several times to go off the screen, okay, you'll know that it works out really good. We have the header up at the top, all of our content, and the footer. But our header does not stay up at the top.
No.
Okay, so, you know, how do you do that? You'd have to position your header, okay, to be fixed and moved it outside of the wrapper, okay? And it would still work the same. You would just, let's just go ahead and do it actually real quick. Just gonna copy that and move it outside of our wrapper, okay? Now you'll notice some things will change a little bit. Okay, this time our content is still below, but it still scrolls too. We need to come over here to header, put position fixed. And whenever you set a position fixed on an element, it takes the width away. So we're going to actually have to have the width 100%. Now on this background color, I need to put an RGB because I want you to check out and see what that's going to be because our content's actually going to go up underneath it.
There you go.
Yeah. So right now you actually see hello world underneath there, but as you scroll, you'll still see our content and the footers down at the bottom. And if you wanted to move that content down a little bit, in your content area, you could just do a margin top, okay, of whatever height you want it to do. So we could do actually a padding top and just give it 100 and say 110 pixels. And that would push the content down below our header. We can still scroll, you still have your footer down there, but this is just one way to lay out a website. Now, one of the issues that we found doing this, and this is going to jump into Luke's tutorial, is one of the issues that we found is that if you were going to try to center your logo and everything inside of the content area, that may become an issue by having that fixed header up at the top and then trying to get your content area to be full size.
Yes, because of the min height, it causes some issues, so you won't be able to take your content and actually have it at a fixed height of 100%. So that's one of the issues that we found, and there's ways around it.
Yeah,
thankfully
there are ways around it. Now this is just one way to set up a site. Now this is a basic site, fixed header, content area, and you can have several content areas, and then you can lay out things inside of there. But what Luke's going to actually do is do full sections, right, and get that moving. So we're just going to jump right over in his tutorial.
Jump over to my screen over here.
Take over.
So I've got a lot of stuff already set up. I already have the header fixed at the top, and it's actually outside of the wrapper. And I have my content. It's got a height 100%, width 100%. But inside the wrapper, unlike Todd's, we don't have any flex at all. Flex is gone. Bye-bye flex.
Yep.
And if we actually check it out right now, we still have our footer at the bottom, but we have this blue area, which is our content area. And if I actually decide to duplicate my content, you'll actually see that there is a multiple one. So if I have to scroll down a little bit more, but there isn't a second one. A lot more scrolling to do, which is good.
Yep.
So we're going to do 3 quick things. We're going to do basic layout of a logo, basic adding like 4 boxes. So like if you're trying to show off like maybe projects, this is a good way to show it off. And then the last one is basically, if let's say you're going to dynamically start adding content as you build your website, this is a good way just to get that all set and ready to go. So like I said, we already have our content. The only thing I did add though was I have a display of flex now. So all of my content boxes have a display of flex.
Okay. All right.
So the first thing that we're going to do is that we're going to add a logo inside of my first content one. So I'm just going to type out a div. And I'm going to give it a class of logo. And I already did a little styling ahead. But right here in my style.css, we've got logo. It's got a height of 80 pixels, width of 80 pixels. And probably should change my background color, because the background color of my content is blue. So I need to probably make the logo background color white so I can actually see where it is.
Okay.
So I only added that logo to the first content. And I also gave it a margin of auto. So that way it's going to basically center itself in that entire area. And if I go ahead and pull this up, as you can see in my first content, I have this nice white little box and it's perfectly centered inside of that container. And you won't see it in the second one, but it still looks pretty good. Best thing with this logo, and you don't necessarily need, it doesn't necessarily need to be a div, but let's say that your company or your association has an image that's their logo.
Okay.
Instead of maybe doing a div, you do an image and you give it a class of logo, or you do something similar along those lines, or you put the image inside of the logo box, and there you go, and you style it from there. So that's one way of going. Why you would do this is really
Right.
conjecture for it. Now let's get on to the second one. So this one gets a little different. We're going to have to do a few new things. So the first thing I do is going to add four divs, and each one of them is going to have a class of project.
Okay.
I'm going to go ahead and duplicate them. Now this is going to look a little weird at the start, because I still need to add one thing. Actually, it might not, but let's see what happens. Yep. It did some funky stuff, but that's okay. I knew that was going to happen. So what's going on is that I gave all of my projects certain widths, but since we do not have a wrapper right now inside of this content,
Okay.
it's going to take all of our elements and go from left to right with no wrapper.
Right.
So,
Flex direction.
yeah, flex direction.
There you go.
So yeah. Now here's the thing. We can keep it at row. We
Yep.
don't want to do a column, but we want them to go from left to right, but still keep their heights and just stack on top of each other as they expand throughout or this specific content box.
Okay.
So, as you can see here, I had this little nice class called PRJ. Also, maybe projectile. I don't know. You can call it a projectile. But what you're going to find out is that with elements, you can add multiple classes to them. So we're still going to keep the content class, and it's going to keep all the stuff that we had inside of our content class, the background color, the display, all that stuff. But I'm just going to add PRJ to it. And the thing that I did was this PRJ tag that I created has a flex of wrap, like we talked about in the previous lesson.
Correct.
And then if I fire this bad boy up, skadoosh. Now you can't really tell the difference between them all, because number one, they all have a width of 50%. If I actually changed it so each one of those projects had maybe a width of 49%, you can actually see the difference between some of the elements now. So if I go in here, there you go. You see a nice straight line. And if I actually change the heights as well, I'm going to go ahead and change the height to 49 as well. You will be able to see the difference. And bingo, there you go. Nice 4 little rectangles. And like I did, since we have 4 of them, you want to make them all have a height and width of 50%, so that way they all stack on top of each other, like so.
Yeah.
And then obviously, since I changed them to 49%, they don't take out the entire width, but you can actually see them now, which is cool.
Yeah.
So that way, this is a good way. So let's say you're trying to put in some projects, you want to show off some projects.
Right.
A good way to do it. And then if you want to take it a step further, I won't do it here necessarily, but you can actually give these project boxes a display of flex, and then the content inside there can be flex as well, and do the same thing I did with the logo.
Okay.
So let's say if you have like a header, you could put a header inside, or like a header tag. You type the header inside of there and centered. Looks
Right.
pretty good.
Right.
So the last thing we're going to do, I'm going to add one more content, class of content. And let's say, I'm just thinking super nerdy pop culture stuff. You want to list all the characters to your favorite comic book or video game or whatever inside of this. You want to list each one, but you're always going to have this never-ending list of characters.
Right.
All right, so I'm going to start adding all of these divs inside this content box, and they're going to be called character. So, boom, I'm going to add like several of them. There we go. Now, I already have this character class created, and you can see that it doesn't have any percents. It's got a width and a height, and it's got width of 150 pixels, height of 240, background color yellow. And this time, instead of margin of auto, we have a margin of 5 pixels. So instead of actually taking up any, like it's going to try to do the math and figure out, all right, this is where this needs to go, it's always going to be margin of 5 pixels on all sides of this element.
Right.
If I pull this bad boy up and I go to the bottom, there we go. Looks all nice, all against each other. Now, one thing to note about this, if I start adding more characters, let's see what happens. You're going to notice, oh, there we go. My elements are going to start squeezing in their heights, in their widths right now, because it's going to try to fit all those elements without trying to mess with anything with the container. So if I want to make sure that they start stacking on top of each other.
Wait a minute. Flex wrap.
I was getting there.
All right.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's what I was getting at.
Whew, I was paying attention.
I know. I'm proud of you. I should give you a cookie.
Yeah.
But, okay. So now in this case, we're going to add a second class to this as well. And granted, it's going to be the same type of class as the PRJ that I added to the project container that's holding all of the projects, the previous one I talked about. But I'm going to go ahead and call this CHAR, just because maybe later I'm going to do something different with this container. So it's going to still have the same property of the flex wrap, but it's going to allow me to later, if I want to change this element in any shape or form, I can do that to that specific element,
okay.
Which is why you would do this. So I went ahead and added that, added car. If I go in there, there you go. You can now see that these elements are stacking on top of each other. They kept the widths, they kept the heights, so it's all hunky-dory. This is great. So like I said, when you're trying to dynamically add stuff to your website, this is a great way to get started with that. So it makes it super simple, so that way you don't have to start styling individual things, and it makes everything complicated. That's what you don't want to do. Flex makes it so when you're dynamically adding things, it's pretty simple, and it doesn't cause a lot of problems. So there you go.
Yeah, that's great. Good job there. What I always recommend, and we tell everybody this, make sure that you really, the old-fashioned way, take pencil and paper or whatever, or even just a prototype tool somewhere that's online, and lay out your website first to make sure that you understand how to do it. So today we actually discussed 2 different ways of laying websites out. Okay, you can do either one, but just don't start in coding and think, oh, I want to go this way or I want to go this way, because you could waste a lot of time doing it. So just a hint of advice there, just to, draw things out, sketch it out real quick, and then move on to your development.
Yes.
So anything else you want to add on top of that?
I 100% agree, especially with stuff like that I was talking about with like this dynamic with the yellow boxes. It's stuff like that. It's like, maybe I don't want these to have that specific width, but you don't know that until you start developing. And then once you start adding more content and it's got different widths and heights and stuff like that, it might mess it up. So it's really good to start sketching out and be like, this is what I really want to do. And then make sure that's what you really want to do. So that way, when you jump into development, you don't run into a bunch of problems.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Good advice. Okay. Until next time.
Yeah.
I'm Todd.
I'm Luke Jones.
All right. And we'll catch you around.
Until next time.